This is a pentagon that is in opposition to the structural formations and principles that hold cohesion to a society. The 5 sides of our pentagon represent war, famine, plagues, pollution, and natural catastrophes. These are the fastest and most effective ways to bring about a breakdown in society and a mass depopulation. Most of these are now active in our times, and this whole pentagon of destruction is underway. This is a clear signal that we are in the Kali Yuga. We have already entered the twilight of the end phase of this cycle of human development. In terms of military weaponry, we are able to emulate all of these natural changes and natural catastrophes. Pollution, of course, is something that we all have become aware of. But even after the last 60 years of this awareness, no real moves have been taken to stop it. Famine and the power of famine is constantly being increased. Even with science and technological advances, we see an intensifying in the tendency towards famine and starvation in the world. Science has also contributed to the principle of destruction with the manufacturing of biological weaponry. With this pentagon, we can see that this sort of information exists in ancient texts and alerts us to the effective use of symmetry and diagrams for conveying conceptual ideas. It shows the way that we can move between mythology, mathematical and geometric symbolism, mythological symbolism, and other information structures. Doing this will help us think in terms of ideas from the past and present circumstances as well. Perhaps, like the Kamutef, which is an epithet of the Egyptian gods Amun and Min, this way of thinking can aid us in considering possible futures. The pentagon holds the entire geometry of the golden mean. The golden mean is the ratio which can produce a series of numbers in which the small and the larger part have the same relationship to each other as it does to the whole. This is the geometry of the transcendent potential of the manifest world. The proportion of the golden mean goes in 2 directions. We have passed from the world of the absolute unity to the created world, and we've included the manifestation of mind, the existent manifestation, and the manifestation into the 3-dimensional world. It goes one more stage to lead to the 4th power. Then the proportional relationship stops. It is no longer in a relationship of this is to this, in the same way that this is to that. It ceases to be the 3-term proportion of individual parts to the whole. Smaller to the larger, larger to the next larger, larger to the whole. This idea necessitates that we posit an experiential dimension outside of the manifest world, above it, as well as the intellectual process within. Interestingly enough, it does the same thing in the opposite direction, in what we call the inverse. Remember, any number is really a number that stands over 1, and its inverse is when 1 stands above it. So every number and its inverse goes back to 1. 1 over phi to the 4th power is the process of not having a state of being with its inverse. Once again, these are all in line. The ratio ceases to be a proportion after 4 levels. All this knowledge, on a mechanical level, is held within the reproductive image of the pentagon. The pentagon, of course, also holds the pentagram, which is the image that is associated with the proportions of man. Since we have started to talk about the origins of Gnosticism and the beginnings of Templarism, the inverse pentagram holds the head of the deity called Baphomet, who was the figure of worship for the Templars. This is the warning that while the figure that encloses humanity holds both all the creative powers of light and order and purity and balance, it also holds, in its inverse, the complete image of darkness and disruption. With the pentagon, we are remembering that Isis refertilizes herself with the phallus. This implies the reproductive composition held within the head of the phallus as a pentagon. Again, the transparency between geometry and biological form continues. As we know, the central offices of all branches of the U.S. Armed Forces are housed within the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. may be the esoteric capital of the world, There are thousands of examples of ancient geometry and mythological imagery scattered throughout the district. One such example of this is an image of a Greek zodiac. This design shows Hermes, Zeus, and Aphrodite, the three main characters in Greek mythology, encircled by the 12 signs of the zodiac: Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius. Hermes, on the right, represents wisdom, knowledge. He is similar to Vishnu in that he is the principal figure of cohesion and the maintenance of form, order, and continuity. The figure in the middle is Zeus. He is the image of hierarchy, the god of militarism and government through force and power. Aphrodite, on the left, represents not only love and beauty, but also the manipulation of those factors, as is evident in our society where sexuality and beauty are used as a system of distraction and manipulation of human energy. Hermes points with his right hand to the astrological sign of Pisces, the age that we are presently in terms of the precession of the equinoxes. The sun will move out of Pisces after having spent the entire era of Christianity, 2,160 years, in that sign. When the age of Pisces comes to an end as a major celestial influence on human life and the earth, we will then pass into Aquarius. Zeus, god of the sky and thunder, holds a staff, his right hand pointed above between the signs of Scorpio and Sagittarius, at nearly the exact position of the center of the Milky Way. In 1998, the sun went past this exact point that Zeus is pointing to and moved from Scorpio into Sagittarius. The number 1998 is 37 times 54. It's also symbolically 3 and 7, the number which defines important intervals in the Yuga. Additionally, the slope of Zeus's right forearm is in direct alignment with the anti-center of the galaxy, which occurs between Taurus and Gemini. Furthermore, the left heel of Hermes is implanted exactly in the shoulder blade of Taurus, and that is the exact position of the beginning of the Kali Yuga. This is particularly significant, not to mention astronomically accurate, as it is in direct relation to the Indo-Iranian god Mithras, who commonly is depicted slaughtering a bull. In this image, Mithras is seen arching the head of a massive bull back toward him with his left hand, while stabbing the beast in the neck with a blade held in his right hand. The Greek Hermes is his counterpart, an exact analog to Mithras. We see where the heel of Hermes is planted into the shoulder blade of Taurus, the bull, as a representation of the beginning of the Kali Yuga in 3606 BC. That 504-year period, from approximately 3606 to 3100 BC, is the time frame in which archaeologists believe that Stonehenge was built. It is also a time during which there was a planetary alignment of all 14 planets, when the desertification of the Middle East and North Africa began, as well as the formation of the Egyptian Empire. It is the time that astronomers recognize that a group of asteroids entered the outer ranges of our solar system, within the orbit of Pluto, and have been working their way towards the Sun ever since. Those asteroids are called the Taurid asteroids because they emerge out of the shoulder blade of Taurus, and they are expected to be within the Earth's orbit at the end of the Kali Yuga. Does all of this mean that the human race will suffer a catastrophe at the end of the Kali Yuga, at the end of the Great Cycle? Evidence in the Puranas may suggest something quite different. We have been looking at the possibility, especially with the large amount of symbolic and geometric knowledge that is found in the plans, monuments, and architecture of Washington, D.C., that there is a power elite which has somehow gotten a hold of the knowledge of the Yugas. This is a very threatening and challenging thought, because with the existence of a power elite comes an almost supernatural impetus to the utilization and employment of hierarchical power over generations of mankind. Perhaps this is happening again with the rumors of a very advanced secret space program. We have reason to believe that the power elites maintain a deep understanding of the real Yuga system, the one that we have been presenting throughout this series. If they know that the end of the Kali Yuga is coming, if they know that the sun will eventually supernova as described in the Vishnu Purana, might they be taking serious measures to protect themselves and their assets? Perhaps just like what is described in the Puranas is reoccurring now. If the many rumors of a secret space program are true, perhaps the elites are building arcs to eventually leave this Earth. We know that there is photographic evidence from NASA and the European Space Agency, which indicates that, in the past, there may have been some sort of intelligent habitation on Mars and on the Moon. Maybe these are the places where the survivors lived between the Yugas over the course of 60,000 years. On Mars, it appears that there may have been a settlement, which may have endured damage from a comet or an asteroid. It even appears that there are monuments on Mars which resemble those that are in Egypt. A lot of this is speculation, a lot of this is conjecture. But there are photographs that can hardly be explained in any other way. There is also evidence in the form of computerized imaging, which may show underground structures found on Mars. Perhaps this is where humans can stay so that they are protected from the solar storm at the end of the Kali Yuga. Perhaps this is also the reason for the deep underground military bases here in the United States that began construction in the 1960s. Maybe some of the elites plan to go underground here on Earth to avoid their own demise. But if the cataclysm is as bad as the Vishnu Purana seems to describe, then going underground will not help. It would seem that one would have to leave the Earth completely in order to survive. That could perhaps explain the existence of a secret space program, as well as provide a motive for constructing such a program. Photographs taken by NASA show many odd features on the lunar surface. These appear to have been intelligently designed many years ago. If they are what they seem to be, it is very likely that these were built by humans in a distant age. Just as we have entered outer space near the end of the Kali Yuga, perhaps in the past we achieved even more advanced technology. We have seen the evidence of this civilization on both the Moon and Mars. Perhaps they came back here some 60,000 years ago and created our human race with Osiris as the archetype. Now, they are most likely leaving once again. The elites must somehow be financing a secret space program to leave the planet behind. Perhaps this is where all of the money in the black operations budgets have been going. With this final act, they believe that they will survive. So taking the cyclical nature of the Yugas into consideration, the idea being expressed here is that in the future, some humans, namely the power elite, will attempt to escape destruction by leaving the Earth. For approximately 60,000 years, they will live on another planet altogether, while the Earth heals itself from the previous Kalpa. And perhaps during that time, they will devise the next human. We can see from this series that time and space are part of a continuous cyclical interaction that both creates and destroys. The destiny of the human race is a vital aspect of this process of creation. By understanding the cycles of time, we can speculate that a new human archetype will emerge at the beginning of the next Mahakalpa.